Well, good morning to everybody from the hall of the meeting room at Bootham School. It's really great to welcome you to our virtual Parents' Day this morning. Normally we would be gathering here at exactly this time, on exactly this day of the year, to celebrate a year in the life of Bootham School, and this is going to be no exception. Part of our plan, part of our rationale behind what we've been trying to provide for our school over the last 3 or so months has been that we try to keep things as normal as possible. And what could be more normal at the end of the school year than having a Parents' Day? So that's really part of what we're trying to do. It's so normal, in fact, that yesterday I went out into town and bought myself a new tie, which I always do before a prize giving or a Parents' Day. The only thing that is not normal about this Parents' Day is that it's raining outside. I certainly haven't experienced one since I've been here when it's been raining on this particular day of the year, but it is today. And maybe that's saying something quite important about the situation we find ourselves in at the moment and our sadness at not being able to gather together literally face to face rather than virtually in our own homes. But you're welcome. You're welcome to everything we've got in store for you today in terms of speeches and in terms of things to explore. And if you've been so minded, maybe even some of the food that you normally would have been served here if you've been making that for yourself. So it's really good to have you with us. And I hope that you have a really useful and enjoyable time exploring what we've been doing, particularly over the last 3 months, but over the year as a whole. My great pleasure to start off with then, to hand over to our head reeves, to Charlotte Dean and to Theo Riches, who have prepared their speech with pictures and will take you through a bizarre year in the life of Bootham School.
Good morning. And welcome to the first ever and hopefully last ever virtual Parents' Day. It's a shame we can all be meeting in person, and I know you'll all miss your annual Bootham curry or barbecue. But fear not, Head Chef Nick has created online recipes for your favourite foods, and the link is in the programme. My name is Charlotte and this is Theo, and we're here now to talk to you about the year we've had, something I'm sure everyone has been looking forward to.
That's right, we're here to give you some of the highlights of the Bootham year, whether they have been at school or in the comfort of home.
One of the many mantras we get taught here is speak truth to power, and throughout the year, Bootham students have done just that. At the beginning of the year, 1/4 of the school students' community participated in the Friday climate strikes, knowing that if they did so, they had to forfeit their free time on a leave weekend, hence proving the commitment of the school to do what they believe is right. This was just the start of Bootham's protesting story, as this later evolved into the participation of the pride marches around town to celebrate an egalitarian identity, but also extending that equality into our wider society, marching together regardless if we're in the LGBTQIA+ community or not. We think this is a perfect example of how the Quaker belief of seeing that of God or good in everyone is clearly exemplified.
Along with active protesting, students have been encouraged to exercise their quasi-suffrage this year, parallel to the 2019 election. Whilst the majority of the students may not actually be able to vote, it was the enthusiasm to explore the political spectrum and discover contrasting ideologies that was apparent over the day. And hopefully that will translate to later life when it really counts to hold those in power accountable for their actions. This, once again, is speaking truth to power and letting our lives speak.
Furthermore, in light of tragic events surrounding George Floyd and countless others, some students have taken it upon themselves to protest during lockdown, recognising the systematic discrimination, not only in America's society, but Britain's system too, and campaigning for the fundamental rights that Black and ethnic minority groups have been deprived of for too long. These students have set an example for everyone else that in order for change, an open dialogue has to be cast between us and those in power. We'd like to take this opportunity to thank all those who participated in the face of the risks to their personal health, or those who have raised awareness via other platforms.
On a similar note, Bootham has seen a resurgence in the amount of activities dedicated towards creating a better world around us, some old and some new. The EcoBrick initiative, spearheaded by Rob Gardner, has made a reappearance this year in the form of, no, not another bench, but a bin to accompany it, and it's proving to be stronger than some people's wills to socially distance. These bricks consist of single-use plastics crammed inside a bottle and then being utilised as a brick to make something. This is just one example of how Bootham has acted on the newest Quaker value, sustainability, this year.
Adding to this, a group of college girls led by Erin Davis and Karina Sang have been running an activity throughout the year in order to make reusable sanitary towels for girls in developing countries thus combating the period poverty that prevents young women from attending school and receiving a basic education.
As I'm sure of many of you may know, every year Bootham chooses a charity to focus its fundraising efforts on. This year, this has been Slavery International, and a great deal of work has been done to raise money for them, including, but not restricted to, collections taken by yours truly from this year's Christmas concert and Carols by Candlelight events. Over the last year, a great deal of work has been done on the topic of refugees as well. We started off by celebrating National Refugee Week last June by hosting a barbecue for refugee families in York, in what I've been told was a lovely day with plenty of sun and various matches of football on the field. Equally, many of our Year 9 students have celebrated this year's National Refugee Week by creating beautiful pieces of art on the topic of refugees and racism, some of which you may be able to see on the screen right now. And there's a link in the programme to our website where you can see all of the artwork, should you wish to. It is through activities like these that we truly start to be global citizens and let our lives speak. These artworks have been submitted to an art competition for Refugee Week, and we're very proud of everyone involved.
Not only have Bootham students shown their talent for activism, but students have once again demonstrated has no qualms in expressing themselves on stage. Like a phoenix from the ashes, Cabaret returned this year with a great display from students and teachers alike. Special mentions go to Henry Calvert and Will Jennings as our presenters, the Glee Club, who gave a great rendition of All I Want for Christmas, and the Taskmaster participants, who lost the majority of their dignity. Another example of Bootham Dramatics was our first ever musical, Hairspray, directed by Andy Quarrell, Bootham's newest addition to the drama department. The show was an absolute success, selling out on both evenings and even the dress rehearsal the day before. It was an amazing exhibition of both the musical and dramatic talent of some of the students at the school, and a definite indicator to the exciting shows Andy has planned for the future. Some standout performances were Lottie Walker in the lead role as Tracy, and Rahima Oyekan as Motormouth Mabel.
In terms of sporting achievements, Bootham has seen countless successes over the past year, despite the seasons being cut short by the pandemic. The basketball teams have had universal success, including the under-14s team being county and district champions of 2020, the under-16s team being unbeaten in the district for the 4th consecutive year, as well as district champions and second in the 2020 county competition, and the under-13s playing their way to the district finals of 2020.
The standard of netball played throughout the year has seen a dramatic improvement, with many wins under each team's belt. Special mentions go to the first team, who consistently played to a very competitive level, beating St. Peter's on multiple occasions, along with many other victories.
The Bootham football teams have had similar success, with the first 11 being district league leaders when the season was cut short. The under 15, 16 and 18 teams all played in the national ISFA competition, with a very promising future in the years to come. What's more, Bootham girls team has seen even more improvement for the second year now and played exceptionally well in the 2 girls tournaments that were held, with over 20 teams involved.
The success doesn't stop there. Several students have made individual sporting accomplishments over the past year. These include Yelena Davis playing at county level hockey, Ellen Gordon competing on a national level for diving, and Una Gregory the same for swimming. Not only this, but Benjamin Scurra-Smythe has represented York and District for cross country, and Zach Edwards has competed for Bootham in the English Schools equestrian event at Addington Manor and placed 26 out of 71. Finally, Elliot Chan, Louis Otterburn, Harry Loseby and Charlie Longbottom were all selected to play for the under-18s county football team. Well done to all those involved.
Moving on from sports, several of the school's departments have been globe-trotting throughout the year to several destinations. As per tradition, the modern foreign languages department took students to Munich and Nice for German and French respectively, not only to learn their rich cultures, but also enhancing their language skills. In Munich, students enjoyed popular attractions such as the BMW World, the Olympic Park, and the Allianz Arena. The trip to Nice proved to be eventful after Mark Shuttleworth's brush with the law over invalidated tram tickets and a set of very angry French policemen.
Furthermore, students ventured to Iceland once again with the Geography department, where they witnessed some of the natural wonders, including glaciers and the Northern Lights.
Finally, last October, a group of college students went on a diving trip to Malta. Everyone underwent a great deal of training beforehand, and by the end of the trip, they all walked away with a diving qualification, having had an amazing time in Malta. Of course, there have been plenty more trips in the last year, but we only have so much time.
Now we realise that the school year has been cut short for many of us, and it's been quite a jarring experience for us all to acclimatise to the new online learning system. However, Theo and I wanted to know what some students have been doing to pass the time. When we reached out to students, staff and parents, we were not disappointed with what you gave us. Some students have found their vocation in fundraising for causes they feel passionate about and that may need help in a crisis such as this. Edward Smith is just one such student, who with a team of 9 others ran and cycled a minimum of 450 miles in June to support the prevention of youth homelessness in York.
Tilly Potton took her geography education into her own hands in June as she orchestrated her own geography field trip to Skipworth Common, discovering a myriad of different flora and fauna throughout her trip. She is just one example of how the Bootham spirit is embodied in its students with their thirst for knowledge, despite the adverse climate. Furthermore, the entire school has been participating in a kilometre challenge throughout lockdown in order to stay active. Students have been recording the amount of kilometres they do by any means of exercise, such as cycling, walking or running. At the moment, we've clocked a huge 3,200 kilometres, with the goal of reaching around 9,500 kilometres, which is the distance from York to Tokyo, the next Olympics venue.
Perhaps even predictably, Liz Brown has been our standout lockdown enthusiast throughout these countless weeks, most notably her contribution to this year's house fashion competition, with not only a questionable cowboy outfit, but also a tennis player costume reminiscent of Sue Barker. I'm sure we'll be seeing her at Wimbledon next year.
Regarding some news of some of Bootham's faculty this year, we are delighted to say 4 staff members have welcomed new babies into the world. Congratulations to Matthew Parker, Hannah Thean, Ben Jackson, and Rafaela and Jack Mackenzie.
Finally, as you know, this is our last year here at Bootham, and I think it's fair to say it has probably been the most dramatic end. It's safe to say that teachers and staff deserve our gratitude as students, as the time they invest in us is not only throughout these years, but during lockdown in particular, is monumental. We want to thank you for everything. We know we probably can't comprehend the amount of effort that has gone into adapting lessons for online use and working around peculiar schedules, but we really wish to thank you. At this point, we wish to introduce the next set of head reeves who will take up our roles next year. Those are Freya Leaf and Peter Woodmansey as head reeves, Hannah Redman and Henry Elsom as deputy head reeves. We wish them all the luck for the future.
And that concludes our Parents' Day speech. I think it speaks volumes about the values that each and every student encompasses throughout the year, and is a testament to the student themselves and the high level of enthusiasm and commitment.
Not only have they demonstrated a high calibre of talent in all forms, whether that is activism, dramatics or sport, they have also shown us the amazing things they are capable of in the future. It seems clear after relaying to you these events over the year that some Quaker values hold true, and how the impending 200-year anniversary of Bootham, some of our values have not only stood the test of time, but also some have evolved to reflect the world we wish to live in today.
Thank you very much for listening.
Well, my very grateful thanks and considerable admiration to Charlotte and to Theo for their comprehensive and very generous-spirited review of what has been an extraordinary year in the life of Bootham School. They've been great head reeves and have shown you just how much they deserved their roles in the way that they handled their task just now. Well done to both of you. On November the 24th, 1992, Her Majesty the Queen, at an event at the Mansion House in London marking the 40th anniversary of her accession to the throne, made a speech that has unerringly made it since into any of this Queen's greatest hits compilations. Expect to see Imelda Staunton reprising it in the next series of The Crown. Referring to that year, in which 3 royal marriages had collapsed, there had been, how shall I put it, a digital scandal involving one of her daughters-in-law, and a terrible fire had destroyed more than 100 rooms in Windsor Castle, the Queen chose a phrase that many have appropriated since as part of her speech. With typically regal understatement, she claimed that 1992 is not a year on which I shall look back with undiluted pleasure. In the words of one of my more sympathetic correspondents, it has turned out to be an annus horribilis. Annus horribilis. Not an original phrase, one first recorded about 100 years earlier, but it means horrible year in Latin and sounds much more impressive, I guess, in its ancient language. And so it was in 1992 for the Queen. In a rarely afforded moment of reflection a couple of months ago, I found the same phrase emerging from the recesses of my memory to describe this school year at Bootham, and with some justification, I think. Looking back on the things we've had to deal with as a school over the past 10 months, I would say that without a doubt, it's been the most challenging that I've ever had to manage in my 16 years as head in 2 schools. From the awful and deeply upsetting loss of Richard Burton at the very start of the year, through 2 unexpected, and if I may be so bold as to say so, quite unnecessary snap inspections in October and February, encompassing a couple of really difficult pastoral and disciplinary situations, all the way to the total state-enforced shutdown of the school on March the 20th, and all that both preceded and has followed that. It has been the year that kept on giving, generously, willingly, and with a knowing wink on its smirking face. To appropriate another idea from a rather well-known, this time historical figure, Lenin, who had quite a lot to do with some of our Queen's relatives in his time and certainly made 1917 their annus horribilis. Lenin said, "There are decades when nothing happens, and there are weeks when decades happen." That is certainly what life felt like in March and early April, and in some ways, so did the whole year. But looking back on it from July, still intact, still smiling, still alive and most definitely kicking, I'm not sure that annus horribilis is as apt a description as might first appear to be justified. In fact, and while I wouldn't go so far as to label it an annus mirabilis, or marvelous year, a phrase well beloved of medieval chroniclers and also sounding much better in Latin, I think there are far more positives emerging from it than I could possibly have imagined there would be as we went through. Indeed, I would actually suggest to you this morning that Bootham School is stronger at the end of the year than it was at the start of it. Even Richard Burton's death, about which it is still hard to find anything positive to say, at the very least served to reaffirm so many of our values and the primacy of the type of accepting, individualized approach that marks this school out from others and makes it special. I will never forget his memorial meeting in here, packed to the rafters with students, staff, and parents past and present, as well as family and friends, and leaving it with the sense that, in the horror of losing Richard, we had been reminded of what really mattered about our school and what really mattered about our lives. I'm certain that, as his friends gathered virtually yesterday to raise a glass to his memory on what would have been his 55th birthday, that sense was reignited once more. Even through the debacle of the 2 no-notice inspections we endured either side of Christmas, there were surprising positives to be found. Having, in effect, fallen foul of a procedural technicality in one specific instance, whilst at the same time being told that there were no systemic issues at all with the safeguarding of our students, all the comments I received by email and in person from parents, without exception, were hugely supportive. They revealed the trust that I hope with confidence I can say exists amongst our parent body regarding our ability to look after and care for our students, as well as an appreciation of the straightforward and transparent way that we try to communicate difficult news whenever we are in a position to have to, and many people would suggest that we didn't try to do. I'm grateful for that feedback. It really helps in hard times. And then, just as the inspectors were leaving, the wretched virus came into view, providing all of us with the first hints of the dilemmas, the decisions, and the challenges that we had not experienced before and were thus certainly not prepared for. And we all know how that progressed from there. Us being here today in the way that we are is living proof of that. However far we have become used to it, and even developed an attachment to these COVID times, somewhat akin to sort of societal Stockholm syndrome, it has been the most extraordinary period of our lifetimes, and we know that it's not over yet. It has tested us as individuals, and it has tested us as families. It has tested our priorities and our livelihoods in some cases, our assumptions, our relationships, our faith in very many things. It has tested our definition of normal and asked whether or not we were happy with what normal had become. It is often said that adversity builds character. I agree to an extent, but would argue with greater nuance that although living through adverse situations can refine certain characteristics existing within a person, adversity does not build character as much as it actually reveals one's true existing character. And I think that's true of institutions as well as individuals. I think it's true of Bootham School this year and of all that it stands for, of all that we stand for. And I like what I've seen. It should be acknowledged, of course, that what we have offered to our students over the past 3 months has by no means been perfect. There have been difficulties and inconsistencies. It has been understandably hard for some staff and students to sustain the energetic enthusiasm with which it all started over an entire term. What has been offered will undoubtedly have been better suited to some students' needs than others. It's still, as ever, a work in progress. But nonetheless, my overwhelming emotion at the end of this term is quiet pride. I'm proud of the way that the pandemic has underscored the sense of community we are developing ever more strongly here, of how this is increasingly embracing not just staff and students on a daily basis, but also parents and old scholars, all of who've played a role in piloting us through this tricky time. Old scholars, not young and not so young, have, for example, worked with some of our College 1 and 2 students around university entry and preparation, even feeding into innovative projects that our A-level students have been pursuing once their centre-assessed grades had been made. Parents have continued to turn up, albeit virtually, to Reflect 30, and to the parenting sessions which have arisen from the unique Saturday Parents programme we are establishing here. No other school in the country, certainly that I know of, is doing anything similar to link their parents in on a weekly basis with the activities of the school. Earlier in the year, Elaine Phillips instituted our Bootham Proud campaign. As part of that, students were asked to submit what they were most proud of about Bootham. And the word community came out more strongly than any other. It's a word I have heard repeated by staff, students and their parents over and over again with increasing regularity in the correspondence I have had and the surveying that we have done in recent times. That deep sense of community is clearly highly valued by people, and I believe has only been strengthened by recent events. I'm proud, too, of the resilience that all members of the school have shown in the face of the unexpected, the unwanted, the unfair, and the downright unusual. The resilience that my colleagues have shown in changing their working habits and methods and priorities and skills, while still seeming cheerful and above all being caring, has been astonishing to observe. The resilience that parents and families have shown in providing care and support for each other in our virtual school world, as well as in life more generally, has been similarly heartwarming. And above all, the resilience that our young people have shown in handling and facing down the challenges they have been presented with, particularly the big one for them, being cut off from their friends, has been inspirational. The way that they have kept going, sometimes through tightly gritted teeth and visible uncertainty etched on their faces is remarkable. As I said in my video to parents at half term, they will have grown and they will have become stronger through this experience, each and every one of them, in a way that so-called normal life will not have been able to encourage. They will all be the better for it in a whole variety of ways. And that growth will offset, at least to some extent, in the majority of cases, the problems that some of them will have experienced and will continue to experience going forward. I am proud also of the way that our priorities and our values as a school have been so clearly vindicated over the past few months. We set out from the beginning of lockdown to offer care and connection as our first priority. All but a tiny handful of the huge number of emails, letters, cards, and other comments received from parents and students over the past 3 months have given great cause for believing that this approach has been valued and effective and exactly what was needed. In particular, I've loved reading the many comments about how much parents have loved overhearing the nature of the interactions between teachers and students, often covertly through bedroom doors whilst lingering maybe not so innocently on the landing, and realized for the first time, in fact, what they have known in theory, just how special that relationship between teachers and students here actually is. In the end, though, as much as I am proud of what Bootham as a school community has achieved, of how it has survived, of how it has responded, of how it has grown, I am most proud of what its individual members have given to make that possible. So I would like to end with some thanks. Firstly, thanks to you, our parent body. Thank you for encouraging, helping, cajoling, and otherwise forcing your children to keep engaged with school, to make the most of as near to normal as possible experience we've been endeavoring to give them. Thank you for supporting their studies, for picking up the pieces when it's hard, and for managing the tears, the fears, the guttural grunts, and even the tantrums that will inevitably have attended education in lockdown from time to time. And thank you from the bottom of my heart for the truly extraordinary numbers and the deep warmth of the emails, cards, letters, and survey comments that we have received, expressing your appreciation of what my colleagues have prepared and what they have achieved for and with your children. The ratio of grumpy communications to appreciative one is not typically too inspiring during normal times. In the last 3 months, the positive has consigned the grumpy to the status of a feeble also-ran, in a way that has kept the whole community buoyant as we have shared these messages together. You will never know how much that has meant to all of us working here. Secondly, I would like to thank the students who, on a daily basis and repeatedly, have reminded us just why it is that we chose to do this job, and just why it is that we still love it. Their responsiveness, their openness, cheerfulness, and committedness have been of great importance to my colleagues and, in turn, have helped them to keep going as they have got understandably deeply weary as the end of the term has appeared over the horizon. To see a few real three-dimensional children in school over the past couple of weeks has been a true joy and a promise of what we hope we can resume fully at some stage in the autumn. Lastly, and undoubtedly most importantly, I would like to pay as warm and heartfelt a tribute as I can to my colleagues, who have been simply extraordinary over the last 3 or 4 months. I don't want to forget those, mostly support staff, but also a very small number of teachers who have not been able to contribute, even though they will have wanted to, but had to sit it out on the sidelines on furlough. They also serve who stand and wait, as John Milton once wrote. Others of the support staff have worked hard and consistently behind the scenes throughout, and I'd make particular mention of the IT team and Luke Gilliver, who've done so much to keep the show on the road and support both teachers and learners. No words will adequately express what debt I, and I guess all of you watching, owe to my wonderful colleagues on the teaching staff. We talked together in March as it was getting increasingly clear just what might be coming at us and just how big the threat it might be to us as a school, about the need to trust ourselves to rise to the challenge, and how magnificently they have done that. You will not know the hours of preparation that have gone into what they have provided for your children, the skills they have had to master with very little advanced preparation, the commitment, patience, and imagination that has been poured into trying to make life as normal as possible for our young people. Their contribution has, at times, been as sacrificial in the toll it has taken as it has been selfless in its motivation. In short, I am in awe of how my colleagues have responded and how they have served this community. Finally, I want to pay tribute to my leadership team, who have been equally extraordinary and who have risen to every new challenge with unerring focus, positivity, and energy, setting the tone for the whole school. If the sign of true leadership is humble service, they exemplify it. And I have never felt more fortunate than I have over the past 4 months that it is so much greater than the sum of its already considerable parts. As this is becoming worryingly like an Oscar speech, I'll finish now and direct you back to the page containing all of the links to the other things that you can explore at your leisure over the rest of the morning. I hope that you will spend some time with us, that the Bootham mess is chilling in the fridge, and that the curry is bubbling on a cooker somewhere. Enjoy it all. But one final thought. Earlier on in this speech, I said that we were not prepared for the challenges that the arrival of COVID, or is it COVID-19, would throw at us. Perhaps, on reflection, that's not completely true. From one point of view, it is, in that we didn't have the knowledge and the experience that we now possess, and we had to make it all up as we've gone along, encountering unforeseen obstacles and decision points along the way. Nothing could have prepared us for the specifics. On the other hand, whilst the practicalities were new to us, time has shown that we were actually very well prepared. Well prepared in terms of the firm and enduring foundations upon which we have been privileged to build our response. We have been well prepared through the time-tested Quaker principles of our school, which compel us to put love of people, the building of community, and the primacy of higher purpose at the very heart of all we do, and that have served us very well indeed. Well prepared in being able to tap deeply into the aquifer of heartfelt commitment and service that my colleagues bring to work every day, into the life-affirming responsiveness of the young people that we serve, and into the support that we all get from the parent body. Given all that, it is perhaps not so surprising that at the end of what by rights should have been an annus horribilis, we have seen enough evidence of it being much closer in outcome to an annus mirabilis to truly encourage, reward, and sustain us for what is still to come. I have been proud of Bootham School from the moment I was chosen to lead it, but never more so than during the COVID summer of 2020. Thank you very much for being here this morning. Thank you for listening. Have a good explore.